So welcome everyone. I think there's Sophia, there's Yin, Swastika, Mamta. Good evening and thank you for joining me today for our webinar on a topic of, and that's on family constellations. Happens to be one of the topics that are very, very close to my heart. So it's a pleasure to be with you all today. And I noticed that we are a smaller group. Most probably there will be other people joining, but if we continue to be a small group, then I'd like it to be as interactive as possible. So you can use the chat box. You can stop me anytime. And if you have any queries, just shoot and I will be more than happy to answer that. That's the advantage of having a smaller group compared to a larger one. So let's begin. I'm just going to try and share my screen. And I hope this is visible, and I'm hoping I'm visible and I'm completely audible. Just in case you don't see me or hear me, or you're not able to see my screen, you can use the chat box and let me know. Otherwise, I'm assuming that we are good to go. There's something on the chat. Okay, my chat box is not opening for some reason. All working perfectly. Thank you, Sophia. Okay, so, okay. Give me a moment. My computer is acting very funny. I hope it bears with me now. So yes, family constellations is our topic today. We know it by other names as well. Sometimes we say it's systemic constellations. It's one and the same. And it is definitely a very unconventional tool for healing. So I will take you through it. What I plan to do is talk about the modality, talk about the difference between other modalities and this modality. I'll give you certain examples because I believe, family constellations or systemic constellations is something that is truly very experiential. So to just explain it academically can be a little stretched, but I'll try my best to explain as much as I can. And then I'll open it up for question and answers so that if you have any queries, you can, of course, at any time ask me. Have any of you experienced family constellation, or is it the first time that you're here today to know more about what this is about? Sophia has experience, yes, and it's amazing. I agree with you, Sophia, completely. So I'll wait for others to let me know first. Ruba, first time. Swastika, first time. Mamta, first time. Okay, okay, first time. In also first time. Okay. Then I will take a little more time to explain about more about the modality before I go into the mechanism. And as I speak, it also reminds me of my first time of when I was introduced to this modality. So to begin with, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Arpita. I'm a holistic therapist at Illuminations JLT. I practice a variety of modalities, starting from family constellations to hypnotherapy to transpersonal regression therapy. I'm also majorly into corporate wellness and training. And that is because I'm an economics graduate. I did my MBA and I've worked in the corporate sector for more than 15 years before I was introduced to the world of family constellations and healing. And though I had many years back come in as a client, like many of you today are, first time into this beautiful space, I never came with a plan to have this transition, but I think it was either destined or as life would have had it that way. This not only healed me, I am an example of first-hand healing through all these modalities. It healed my family. And finally, I took the call to quit my corporate job and move into this profession full-time. Don't get me wrong, I had a wonderful corporate job. I've always been blessed with very good bosses at my work. So it wasn't an easy call to take to move, but I think it was the calling or life purpose or whatever it was at that point of time. So it gives me immense pleasure today to come and talk about these modalities, and especially family constellations. Why family constellations is very special to me is not only because of its uniqueness, but there's a very personal story to me. The first time I came into this line of work was, and I did the constellation, was for my very little daughter. She was 18 months, 2 years old when I worked on an issue, on a physical issue with her. And it miraculously and absolutely miraculously worked wonders. And there was no looking back from there, from that day when I saw what family constellations brought into my life personally. So going into the topic directly, because a lot of people are very new to it. So welcome. It's probably your time in life, like I had mine a few years back, to know about this absolutely beautiful, wonderful modality. Now, today we are talking about it being unconventional. That's our topic. When we talk about this modality, this is very unique to begin with. When I say unique, it is not like most, say for example, even for me as a facilitator or as a therapist, I do other modalities which are more or less based on the workings of our subconscious mind, which could be hypnotherapy, it could be metaphor therapy, it could be regression therapy, so on and so forth. What makes this modality, family constellation, very, very unique is it doesn't require the presence of your conscious mind. To add on to that, sometimes it doesn't even require your own presence. Vis-a-vis the other modalities of healing require your presence there. So it's very, very intriguing how this whole concept works. It is, again, compared to the other modalities, and this is not to say that one is good over the other, not at all. Each modality has its own benefits, and it caters to different people in different times of our lives. Family constellation is not a problem-focused therapy. So whatever it is, for most of the other mind science related therapies, you'll see we start with there's an issue and we are focused on that. This is the flip of it. Flip in the sense we work in this modality in order to see what the hidden dynamics of a system are and let the resolution kind of come up. So the focus is more on that resolution rather than being on the problem itself. Let me get into the details a little bit, and if there are any doubts, as I said, please stop me and you can ask any questions at any time. This modality is, again, another thing that stands out compared to other modalities is it's a very, very unique modality which is very young. When I say young, if you think of psychology, psychoanalysis, regression therapy, hypnotherapy, these have been there in our world for many, many years. But when you look at family constellations, it's only in the late 1970s that this gained prominence. So even chronologically, it is a very, very young line of work. Sophia says, yes, and that's why I keep on coming back. It is so incredible. Yes, Sophia, it is so incredible. I hold the workshops once a month. Even I am, as a facilitator, that is a very beautiful space for me. So though, so family constellations, we owe it to Bert Hellinger. Bert Hellinger was a German psychotherapist, and the concept of family constellations is his work. Though Bert Hellinger never claimed to have coined the term family constellations, but he is the one who has, we look up to him. He's the one who has put this together. So, though born, brought up in Germany, Bert Hellinger was ordained as a priest. He moved to South Africa and he spent a lot of time of his life there in South Africa. He predominantly worked very closely with the Zulu tribe there as well. He worked as a teacher, as a headmaster, and in his line of work, he slowly began to work a lot with families, systems, or communities. And this line of work that he developed through was through his observation of these many systems, many families, and many systems that he had worked with. So it is not a modality where you study, like when you actually end up, if you're interested, you could end up doing a course on being a facilitator for this modality. It is again very different from the other courses in the sense that there's no curriculum of or chapters. This is based on the concept of phenomenology, which means we are looking at a situation without any intent, without any fear, and we're looking at it without any kind of filters. We're looking at it as it is. So this line of work is developed purely through his observations. So he would observe, he would form a principle, and that got tested again in the future families that he worked with. This modality again is very, very helpful in the sense that many a times we keep working on ourselves, and we do that. It's a lifelong quest of, solving our patterns, our blocks, but many a times our focus is only on ourselves. When you look at problem from the family constellation point of view, here we are saying that it's just not me alone or what is happening inside me. Of course, that's very, very important, but this issue or whatever we wish to work on is also impacted by the bigger system that I belong to. What do you mean by system? System could be any group. Say, for example, now we are holding this webinar and there are like 10, 11 people. We are a system. And what are the properties of a system? System means we are connected. We are connected through the Zoom link. Now we are on the platform and we are here sharing information. Even if you look at the word constellations, and that reminds us of, the universe, the stars, the galaxies, those are also systems. They are also systems that are held together by some kind of force. So the system is defined as the energy field that connects the members and holds them together. So right now we are part of a system of this webinar. And then when this ends, we will go back to our families, and then we go back to another system that we belong to. So with that definition, you see the system, we belong to multiple systems. Of course, we belong to our families. We belong to our workplaces, where we go to work. We belong to our communities. We belong to our identity is just not limited to who we only are, but this line of work looks at influences, looks at entanglements that come in if anything has made the system that we belong to go a little out of order or out of balance. Okay, so going back to Bert Hellinger's work, so when he through his observation, if I have to narrow it down, this line of work is actually very, very simple in a way to understand that he came up with three main principles on which this line of work is based. And he was of the opinion that if these systems, if these principles are followed in any system, then that system is well balanced, then that system doesn't have, the members of those systems will not exhibit any kind of blocks or patterns. If we go a very sneak peek into the principles that he talks about, The first principle, and you'll see this is so simple. There's nothing that we don't know, but it will give you a completely different perspective by the time we end the webinar. The first principle is the need to belong. Each say not only it is an intrinsic need to belong, the fact that we are alive, which means we have been born into some family or the other, that is our first system, which means we already belong. It's a very natural byproduct of the fact that we are born. Now, when I say belong, I'm not talking of the subjective relationship we have with our families. So for one person, we may have fantastic relationship with the parents and siblings, and other person may have a very distant relationship. We are not looking at the subjective quality of how we relate to our families. Here we are looking at a very basic raw fact that from the time not only we are born, we are conceived in our mother's womb, we already start to belong. Second thing about belonging is, in this line of work, we believe everybody belongs equally. What does that mean? It means that in a system, say in a family, for example, the people who are alive vis-a-vis people who are no longer there, who have died, who have passed away, they belong equally. Say, for example, if there is a family where there is mom, dad, and 2 siblings, 2 children, we say it's a family of 4. However, if this couple had a miscarriage before the first child, or an abortion after the last child, or a stillborn baby, those children who have gone missing, who were conceived and not born, are also considered part of the system. So in that case, it's not a family of 4 technically. It becomes a family of 3 or 4, depending on if that family has any lost children. The same thing applies for adoptions. So for kids who are adopted, they have an adoptive family, but they also belong to their biological parents, to that side of the family. Belonging may also entail if we have lost somebody through unexpected kind of death, murders, suicides, or if somebody has been excluded from the family for whatever reason, if there's been like a fight in the family, or there has been certain actions that are not according to the rules and regulations of a system or a family and they're excluded, then as well, that doesn't mean that that member doesn't belong to the family. We are looking at belonging from a very, from a perspective of an overview without any exclusion. So there is no scope of any subjective judgment to come in. The statement remains the same. We need to belong, we do belong, and we belong equally to whichever system we are from. That's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is need for order or hierarchy. So in any system, there is an automatic order. So in family systems, there are parents, and our parents are elder to us, so they are higher up in the hierarchy compared to us. And say we have children, our children are lower on the next rung of the family tree. Grandparents are bigger than parents, and so on and so forth. This is the order in which love and life has flown to us. And this order cannot be changed. We all have a position. So deriving from belonging, now if you look deeper, and the photo here is just representative of the same thing, it is a layered approach. And each one of us have a position in it. We cannot go below, we cannot go above. The moment that happens, that's when I come to talk about blocks and patterns and how we heal that through family constellations. When that happens, then we say there's an entanglement, there is parentification, and there are issues associated. And the third principle that keeps systems, families into place is called the need for balance. Now, Before I go into that, this also applies to not only families. If you think of your work space, of your office, it's the same thing. You belong to a place that you go for work, and when you have entered your office, when you have started to work, you would realize there is already a hierarchy set. So there are people who have come before you, chronological hierarchy. We're not talking here of designations. And there are people who join after you. And then coming to the third one, the need for balance. In any system, there needs to be a give and take. For example, in our system, in this webinar, I am sharing and you are also sharing. I am giving information and you're asking questions. In relationships, the need for balance, like if you go to family relationships, it means that, you know, when we say we are in a balanced and in a harmonious system, it means being member of that system, I give you a little and then you give me a little more. When I receive this much, then I give you little more and you give me little more. So it's a build up, it's a positive build up of contribution. Again, same thing happens if you look at your organizations where you work for. You go, you do your work, you get paid money, you do more work, you get a promotion, and you work as a team, for example. These are the only three and very, very simple principles on which this modality was built by Bert Hellinger. Now, if any of these principles, one or more, are broken consciously or unconsciously, the system goes into a state of imbalance. And that imbalance is what we call as the junior members of the system, the children of families, pick up as entanglements. What does that mean? Imagine the chandelier A. It has different layers, which is your rule principle number 2. There is a hierarchy. There are specific positions of holding the bulbs or the candles. Each bulb or each particular place, and there is contribution from each of those bulbs or the candles burning that gives us light. That's the perfect picture, the harmonious picture of the chandelier. In the same way, when we belong to systems, this harmony needs to be there. Now imagine one or two of those bulb holders or the bulbs are not there. What is going to happen to the chandelier? It's going to get tilted in one side. Similarly, when somebody goes missing from the system, when somebody is excluded from the system, when the hierarchy is broken in terms of the chronological order, or when contribution is made too much or too little, the children of these families, when I say children, I'm talking of the younger generations or the new members of these systems, very unconsciously try to bring back the balance. And that is what we call as entanglements. Now, the fact remains that a child will always remain the child of the family. So no matter how old I am still going to be a child for my parents. And no matter how big my children grow tomorrow, they are still going to be children as far as I am concerned. And though we sometimes get out of our positions to solve a problem, and bear in mind, this is completely unconscious. Unconscious love and loyalty translates into entanglements. What are these entanglements? This is what, in general terms, we are talking of blocks and patterns we face in life. So just a few examples from my own experience as a family constellation facilitator. Many times, very common to see that people come with issues of block of financial abundance. So I just can't, say, for example, attract money. Or even if I attract money, money just flows away from me. That's one. There could be blocks on, I can't get ahead in my career. It's like, you know, I'm running a race, but something happens, the finish line is very near. I don't get that promotion. I don't get that on-site offer. Success doesn't come. I don't get recognized by my boss. Entanglements can also be actual physical diseases that children pick up. And when I say children, I'm also talking of adult children or families, just not children. It could reflect very much on our relationships, where I just don't find the right partner. I constantly have a feeling of abandonment, or even if there is the right partner or the right family member with me, then there is some sense of lack of communication there. So just a few examples, again, mostly from my client pool that I have worked with. It could be, it could come in form of very, very painful family situations that keep on going and going, and there's no solution. Difficulty to attract money, not being able to go ahead in your career, or any relationships. There's no harmony in any relationships that I have. Another pattern is, I earn a lot of money, I get a lot of success, but once I get everything, I lose everything all over again and have to begin from the scratch. Attracting the same kind of partners, block to abundance, or any experience that keeps repeating in your life: abandonment, abuse, dominance, neglect, or simply I find it very difficult to find love. These are the entanglements, or these are the blocks and patterns that come through this unconscious longing, the unconscious love and loyalty that we feel towards members of our systems who have been there before us. Now, that is one part. Now we know what we are struggling with. How do we solve this? So, as I said today, very unconventional method, extremely unconventional. I think we spoke about it. It's a very solution-focused therapy. This is a therapy that is where the presence of your conscious mind is not required at all. The only thing that is required is what is the issue that you want to work on. This is, in a sense, a very, very profound healing at the level of our souls. So family constellations is often called as when you see it in the matrix, it is called as the movement of the soul. And sometimes it just with 2 or 3 elements, it beautifully shows the resolution. What does it show? How does the resolution come? The resolution comes because whatever is unknown to us, whatever are the undercurrents of the system, whatever has been hidden, the hidden dynamics of families, the hidden dynamics of systems come up. Before I get into how does it work, let me give you a few examples to understand how it works. So, say for example, I've had a client who came, and his presenting issue was that I'm completely lifeless. Everything is fine. I have my family, I have my job, I have everything that I have to tick my boxes. Everything is ticked, but I have no joy out of life. So when we did the constellation, it revealed that client had a twin sibling. They were conceived together, so it was a multiple pregnancy. The twin never made it, so he became a singleton baby when he was born, and he didn't know about it. And he didn't know about it because his parents also didn't know about it. And this is very, very common. Many times, in fact, 1 out of 3 pregnancies start with fertilization of multiple embryos. And even before the 2nd, 3rd month, when mother goes for the first checkup, 1 or 2 of them may not make it. So even with the first consult with the doctor, it's always one baby. And many times parents don't even know that there was another child, another soul, another baby that did not make it. So this exclusion of that unborn child happens out of just not knowing it. But who doesn't know it? Who doesn't know it is our conscious mind, is what is happening around us. But at the level of the soul of the twin who survived knows it. And many a times, in this case particularly, it is something what we call as survivor's guilt. I made it, but my brother or sister didn't make it. So out of unconscious loyalty for an unborn sibling, and this you could relate to even miscarriages, abortions, adoptions, out of this total unconscious loyalty towards a sibling, I kind of tend to give up on my life, because how can I enjoy it when my brother or sister couldn't? Which means this example is a mismatch for the first principle, the principle to belong. Let me give you an example for the second principle when we say the hierarchy has been broken. So another client with not able to find a partner, struggling very hard, just doesn't get the right woman in his life, and there's no apparent reason. When we did the constellation, it shows that he lost his father very early on in life. And out of this unconscious love and loyalty for the missing father, he's unconsciously taken that position, which is higher than him in hierarchy. So his focus is on those responsibilities, on taking the position of the father. And when he does that, there is no, the constellation shows there is future partner is standing there, but the focus is not there. So we disentangle this unconscious love loyalty, it breaks. We carry our missed ones, our loved ones who are no longer there in our hearts, and we move towards the future. I can give you many examples, so if there's any questions, just let me know. I'm more than happy to answer them all. I'll move on to explaining how it works. I'll explain first how it works in a group settings, and then I'll explain how it works on a one-on-one session. Family constellations or systemic constellations can be done both ways. It can be done on a group workshop, or it could also be done one-on-one. For all of you who have never experienced it, my recommendation is you should always try first a group constellation, because the experience that you carry in a group is very, very different from when you do it one-on-one. On that note, the healing happens irrespective. So the result of whether you're doing a group constellation or whether you're doing a one-on-one constellation, the results are always the same. But the experience that you get in a group is very, very different. So you should try it wherever you are, and wherever you find a place to do constellations. It's my recommendation is you should always, at least once in your lifetime, try constellations. How do we do it in a group? So in a group, imagine there are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in a group. So imagine it's a room. We have a room to ourselves, and people are seated, say, in a circular fashion all around. And then the facilitator would invite one person who wants to work on his or her issue. So say client will come, and then facilitator will ask about what is the problem. Now, you can do like how I personally do it for my workshops is, if you're okay, you can share the issue in front of everyone else, or if it is something that you don't want to share, we can always do the case taking in private. So in either case, once the case is known and we know what we are going to work on, say, for example, let me explain with an example. Person comes and says that I have a block towards money. So I earn money, but I keep losing it. I want to work on this issue. So typically in such kind of a case, I would probably choose 3 elements. I would tell my client that out of all these other people who are sitting in the room, and bear in mind, these people are complete strangers to you. You don't know them. They're all individual participants who have signed up for the workshop. So I would ask this client to say, pick 3 people from the group of strangers who are there in the room, and pick one who will play the role for the client, pick one who will play the role for money, and pick one who will play the role for the block that is coming between him and his money. So client will go and request and select people to come. He will then place these people in the group, like in the space in the room, in whichever way he wants them to stand. From that moment onwards, the work of the client is done. That is where I say that there is sometimes not even the presence of the client in the constellation. So as the client now, you will go and you will sit, go back to your chair, and you will be in a position where you can see how now these people will start to move. Now, the first position in which they put gives me as a facilitator an understanding of the diagnostics of the problem. So the initial placement is actually the representation of the inner image of whatever is happening subconsciously in that system. From there on, these people who are absolute random strangers who you do not know, they don't know your story, you will see they will start to move. So there's a flow of energy. Sometimes we encourage them to speak certain sentences, and they will move, and to the extent, like for example, if someone is playing a client's mother who has say arthritis in her knees, the rep who is playing the mother also is able to channel that same pain in his or her knees during that constellation. So what are we doing here? We are stepping these reps. These are reps. They don't have a script, so they're not reading out of a script. They will step into the energy of those elements, and they will start to say or move or express themselves through the body in a way which finally, with this movement, the resolution of the problem or the hidden dynamics, what is causing the problem, will come to the surface. Once it comes to the surface, then the client can step into this matrix and take in that picture. I know it sounds absolutely magical, and yes, it is magical, but it is also very scientific. If you want to know more about it, you can research on morphogenic fields, Rupert Sheldrake's work. In very simple terms, what it means is the space in which we live, or the space, for example, in constellation where we are doing this, the space actually contains all information. When I say all information, it is just not information of what is happening to us now. It also contains information from the past, from our ancestors, of the systems that we belong. The moment a person steps into that space, of course, with the permission of the client, that person is able to channel various elements of that information for us in the here and now. So that is how they will move and the resolution will show. This is how it works when you're working in a workshop with people, which is absolutely beautiful, because we have the luxury of people actually playing those roles for us. We are able to see it from the outside without being involved. And there is no bias that, you know, client's mind can put into that field, because client is actually outside of the field, just watching what is happening. The same thing can be done on one-on-one, and it can be done instead of, we don't have those people there, then we can do it with figurines, with dolls, with bottles, with stones, with crystals, with coins, with paper, pillows, chairs. You can use anything. Their props can be used. It is done in the same way. But when I'm working one-on-one, then instead of the people channeling, it is either client who is channeling, or it is I channeling as the facilitator. And as I said, the results are the same, but the experience, of course, is very, very different. And because it can be done one-on-one, it can also be done online. And I have done quite a few last year during the COVID and the lockdown. So these are many ways of doing it, but the result will be the same, but the experience with each way of doing it will be very, very different. Now, how do you know if this is a modality that you will benefit from? So if any of the issues I discussed before, you are dealing with any of those, and most probably if you're somebody who's already worked on it, it's not that you're completely unconscious of it, you know this is an issue and you've tried to work on it, and you've tried other modalities and the problem still persists, then definitely try family constellations. This is verbatim and exactly how I came into the line of work. And as I said, this is not to say one modality is better than the other, but each modality has its space. what would you need for your constellation to, you know, show up, to show the resolution, to bring that clarity and peace for you? There needs to be urgency. So in other words, there's a need for change. Like the way I am and what is happening in my life is no longer, I cannot continue this way. This has to change. So that urgency, the more the urgency, the better is the scope of this completely unfolding. And also openness, because bear in mind, here we are talking of pure hidden information. We are talking of hidden loyalties. We are talking of hidden love. We are talking of anything that is a hidden dynamic in a system, which means when it comes to the open, it can be sometimes revealing, it can be eye-opening, and many times very, very shocking. Like, as I said, like not knowing that you had a twin when you were in your mother's womb is extremely shocking. Understanding that the anxiety that I'm carrying is something that I'm carrying from my great-grandfather, and that comes because of what he has gone through in his system. Maybe he was part of a war. Maybe he was part of a war leading to, you know, partition of countries, refugees from one part of the country, of the world to the other. So the readiness is important, the openness is important, and the urgency to know, because a part of us already knows. It's just that that part is unconscious part. The moment that unconscious becomes conscious, things shift. As a facilitator, let me tell you, I have experienced shifts in constellation workshops which have happened within hours of the constellation. And I've also seen cases which have taken 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, 2 years. So I have clients who have done constellations with me 2 years back and have now come back and said, now I understand what it showed. And at the same time, I've seen people who have done a constellation, gone out for lunch, come back after lunch and said, this is what's happened to me. This is something has changed. So it's very subjective, and it depends on these internal parameters of urgency, the need to change, and the openness with which we can take in. So that's all I had to talk about. As I said, it's extremely experiential. So if there are any doubts, if there are any questions, you can either unmute yourself. We are a small group today, or you could put it in the chat box, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions, to give you more examples. So, and for anybody who is interested, you can always join me for my forthcoming workshop, which is end of the month. And for some reason, my computer. Okay, Ruba has a question. Can the workshop be online? Well, Ruba, I haven't honestly, tried an online workshop. My workshops are all on site at the moment. As I say, because the energy is very, very different. Technically, can it be done online? I think it can be done online, but I'm not doing it. I've not yet ventured into it. I have immense love for this line of works. At the moment, I do on-site workshops. Maybe you never know, in the future, we will do an online one. I don't see any reason why it cannot be done. I haven't done it yet. Okay, Ruba, you don't live in Dubai. Okay. So there are many ways to look at it. Either wherever you are, see if you can get it locally. If you find a facilitator locally, do it. You can do it in Dubai there. Or if you want to do it online, I could personally do it one-on-one, and I'll keep you in mind and I'll keep you in my heart. If I'm doing a online workshop, then I will definitely invite you. Sophia has a question. I have when we are resolving it, I did one-on-one session and we are doing it for someone else. It feels resolved, but what happens to the concept of free will? Okay, yeah, thank you, Sophia, for raising this question. When you say doing it for others, What I mean is you can do it for others. If that other is your own child and you're the mother or the father, and the child is less than 18 years old, it's okay, it's ethical then to do it on behalf of our children. Now, if it is someone else, not our children who are small, 110% as a facilitator, at least for me, it requires verbatim confirmation and permission for the person whose constellation you're doing. Say, for example, if I go as a client to do a workshop with, say, some other facilitator, and I want a constellation done for my brother who is an adult, then in that case, it is my responsibility to explain to my brother what is family constellation, what is the issue, and get his permission to do it. Many a times it is done for people who are not in the same country, people who are sick, family members can do it, but 100% with free will and permission. We do not do constellations for anyone who doesn't know that constellation is happening somewhere. It doesn't work. It has to be with free will, unless it is for a child and the mother is doing it for the child. Does that answer your question? Okay, another one. Okay, when something shows up in my constellation, but it's about my partner's family dynamics. Yes, it is very common. Many a times. Actually, you remind me of the last constellation that I have done, the workshop, wherein wife came in with a issue, and though we may want to believe that this is the solution, but constellation completely showed that there was some exclusion on the part of the family of the husband. It still works because its wife is doing the constellation for herself. And when we say that wife is doing the constellation, when the energy shifts, it shifts for the entire family. So this is very common, and this is allowed. This is okay, because this is not, because wife C is not coming with an agenda, or the partner is not coming with an agenda that I have to solve this for someone else. They are coming saying, I have a problem in say the relationship, or so it's I centered. When it is about the wife, so giving example of the last workshop constellation that I did. So exactly the same thing. Lady comes in with an issue, thinking that this is the reason why there's some issue with relationship. Constellation shows completely different. It shows exclusion that is coming from not her side of the family, so not her family of origin, but her current family, but ancestral. So somebody, something. So it could be a person who's gone missing. It could be a person who's excluded. It could be a country that is not respected. It could be anything. It still works, and the results will still show. Now, ideally, when this comes up, we encourage the person to go back and share it with their partners. Ideally, if that inclusion happens with both of them or other members of the family, of course, the impact is way more. But even if it is not, it still shifts something. Now, the speed at which it will shift and the intensity with which it shifts depends on the acceptance of the system and of the person. But this is something that the last point that you're saying is very, very common. It shows up. Yeah, so you've seen the changes. As I said, it sometimes takes months. It sometimes takes minutes. I have seen both as a facilitator, and I'm so amazed at, how beautifully it can shift. So it does change. And the advantage with the workshop is you are viewing it. You're viewing it from the outside, and the people who are showing those shifts and changes, you don't know them. So there is no connection. There's no bias. It's very, very beautiful. Okay. Any other questions? Swastika, has family constellations been used for physical? Yes, all the time. All the time. Physical ailments, yes. We even work with particular organs in the body. Say, for example, if somebody has come with physical ailments, say kidney stones. So in the constellation, when we are selecting the elements, we could choose the client, we could choose the healthy kidney, and we could choose the ailment, the formation of kidney stones, and it does. So in that case, what happens is, this is structural. So we are now not picking up you and your mother or your father or your siblings. We are actually structurally saying, this is you, this is your body, this is your organ, and this is the disease or the ailment. Now, these elements sometimes turn to be one of our ancestors or one of our parents or one of our family members. But yes, in fact, in my last constellation, there was some, though it was not about physical ailments, but after the constellation done by the lady, she later reported that her daughter actually went through a physical remission of a condition that she was suffering from. So yes, it does happen. Again, sometimes it takes time, especially if it is physical, but sometimes it's overnight. This was a physical remission of something which was almost like in the same week. And my own journey has been through this. So when I had come into constellations, my daughter used to have a lot of issues with her lungs. So there was bronchitis, there was pneumonia, so bilateral pneumonia, both lungs. So my first constellation of my life was about my daughter's physical ailment. And touch wood, from that constellation and today, never again. It's never ever repeated again. So yeah, my journey with constellations actually began with a physical ailment for my daughter that completely disappeared. So I can vouch for it personally, just not as a facilitator, as a mother as well. Okay. Welcome, welcome, Swastika. Thank you, Ruba. If there are any questions, you can either unmute or put it on the chat box. More than happy to answer all of them. Okay, if there are no other questions, then I'll just call it a day, and thank you all for being with me today. Hope you found this information helpful. If there are any other queries, you could contact me. I'm going to leave this slide open for my contact details, and you could contact me directly, or you could contact me via Illuminations. I work exclusively at Illuminations. And if there's anything that I could help you understand about this modality, I'll be more than glad. Thank you so much, Sakshi, Mamta. Thank you. And yeah, whenever you feel it's the right time, please do experience this modality. Thank you. I will be around for the next few minutes in case you have any questions, and then we will close it.